Imagine yourself sitting in front of your computer with a map of the United States looking back at you. You've been tasked to choose a new city to move to in the midst of a job search. Out of all the cities in all 50 states, how are you possibly going to choose? The first thought that might come to mind is to choose a city where cost of living is cheapest. That is exactly what we're going to look at today. What are the 3 cheapest cities to live in the United States? How do they decide on cheapness, and what are the factors that they take into consideration when determining? According to an article by the U.S. News Real Estate, the 3 cheapest cities to live in the United States are Fort Wayne, Indiana, Huntsville, Alabama, and Wichita, Kansas. Contributor to the real estate website and longtime resident of Indiana, Tim Wink, said this about living in Fort Wayne. It can be a good place to buy a house, launch a business, start a career, and raise up children. With a population right under 264,000, there's plenty of attractions and establishments for entertainment. Huntsville, Alabama has a similar population to that of Fort Wayne and an interesting history. They started out as a small farm town and have since boomed to be home of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. Wichita, Kansas was founded in the 1800s also as a small farm town and also a trading post. As you can see here, these 3 cities appear to be very pleasant places to live, but how do we determine their cheapness? To find out how cheap a city is, a cost of living index is used. The most common cost of living index is from the Council for Community and Economic Research. The methodology behind the index, according to the Council for Community and Economic Research's website, is to take the 6 major categories and have an item represent each category. For example, using frying chicken to represent all poultry products. The index takes the average price of that item in your specific city and compares it to the national average price. The council goes on to explain that once the prices for each category are compiled together and compared to the national average, a score is given to each state. The national average is given a score of 100. As you can see in this slide, this is how all of the states compare to the national average. Indiana has a score of 91.3, which is below the national average. So now that we know the process, let's take a closer look at the factors that determine cost of living. The council states the 6 categories to determine cost of living are grocery items, housing, utilities, transportation, healthcare, and miscellaneous goods and services. According to the council's website, housing takes up your largest cost of living factor, and it is 52% of your cost of living. The smallest factor is your miscellaneous goods and services, which would be things like personal care items, dining out, or your subscriptions. To conclude, if you are looking for a cheap place to live, like Fort Wayne, Huntsville, or Wichita, you might take a look at cost of living factors involved in making the determination of which city is cheapest.